Excellent. So hi, my name is Jean Matthews. I have a consulting firm called Imaginate, and I do business development and strategy work on behalf of a number of different indies, including some of the ones listed below, like Pocket God, Harmonix, Playfirst, etc. And the name of this session is Business at Warp Speed. Maybe I should have called it Long Lectures at Lunch, clearly. But what I mean by business at warp speed is, how do you exponentially grow your business by leveraging the power of a title or one of your brands, right? Through possibly licensing or partnership deals. So some of you might be a little intimidated by that if you have your own studio, you're one person, maybe a couple people, etc. But even if you're small, I think there's additional revenues that can be captured. So how do we get started? I think the most important thing is decide, where do you want to take your studio? What do you want to be when you grow up? There's a couple different options with this. The first, of course, is remain small, right? It's easy to manage. You can work out of your PJs. You have a lot of flexibility to work on those passion projects. Of course, it might slow your growth and also limit your revenue opportunities. Of course, another option is to grow your studio. You can add John, Harry, and Sam to your team. You can also create a bunch of different products. On the flip side is that means you need more management skills, right? More coordination, more communication between all the different people. And frankly, you might have to go work at an office, which is terrible, I know. Or the third is, what about the big heyday, is maybe you want to get acquired, right? So it's fantastic. You get a big cash payout. You might even earn some credibility depending on who buys you. Then again, you have to now answer to different stakeholders, as well as you have a lot more pressure from an ROI point of view. So it doesn't really matter whatever your option that best fits your studio. What matters most is having a clear vision. What do you really want to do with your studio? And then with that vision, for every licensing and partnership opportunity that comes up, you can shape the kind of structure that would get you to that goal. So how do we get started? Let's say you have an idea what you want to do with your studio, and you've launched perhaps a title or two, or you're about to launch. And let's say you're suddenly seeing success, and your phone starts ringing with some opportunities, especially licensing opportunities. I'll never forget that the Pocket God guys had Fox Studios calling them, and they were like, oh, what do we do with this now? So what opportunities should you take, and how do you look at it? But first, before you start to negotiate any of the deals, I think it's really important to look at what is your studio's capabilities and goals. For instance, do you know how much bandwidth you have to look at assessing proposals? It takes a long time to negotiate deals. It takes a while to work with the lawyers and paper it. You want to, your team will actually spend a long time on product development, which is for that partner, right? But it takes this distracts you from what you're trying to do on the side. So you'll have to be reviewing milestones and looking at marketing assets for them. All of this is bandwidth. So it might be great to do this licensing opportunity, but it takes up your time. So be careful. You also want to assess what kind of PR splash you get. So for instance, Rovio's sign Angry Birds Egg Cookbook, right? Is that really the kind of story that you want about your studio? So ask yourself. You decide how many of these partners you really want to juggle. It takes time. Again, it's a distraction from what you're trying to work on. And finally, and one of the critical things is, estimate the minimum amount of revenue that you want to make for a platform. There'll be some companies that are like, hey, we'll fund all the development if you just come to our platform. That's great. But again, the upside revenue opportunity might not really be there, and it might not be worth your time. All right, so let's say you get to the point where you're doing a licensing deal and you're at a contract stage. When negotiating things, there are some key points that I think are kind of critical. The first is ask for an advance or against revenues, or some kind of minimum guarantee. So if a partner's like, hey, we'll do this deal, great. You know what? Put your money where your mouth is. Give me a minimum guarantee. And that shows a level of confidence in their forecast. And then you have you feel a little better in knowing that they're going to deliver on what they say they are. Also, look at the term. Try to make it as short as possible. I would say 12 months, maybe 18 to 24. everything's great if it's going well, but if it's not, you don't want to be stuck in a contract. So go short and then you can renew if you need to. And along those lines, look out and make sure that there's language about an early termination so you can abort ship if need be. And then one of my favorites when I worked at Disney, the lawyers love to put this in, which is they put an auto renew clause. And what that means is unless you give written termination notice, the contract renews for another 12 months. So that might not be in your favor. So make sure that that language is not in there. All right, so again, a lot of you guys are indies, might be launching on iPhone, maybe Android, maybe a couple of other platforms. But if you have a really small team, especially if you're a team of 1, 2, or 3 or something, it might help to license out to other mobile platforms. So if you do that, here's some things that you should consider. First is, does that partner have really strong relations with the channel? Like, can they get featuring, prominent placement, or promotion for your game? If not, they probably aren't going to move product. Also, you can give, let's say, exclusivity of a particular operating system like Android. Another little trick that the Disney lawyers love to do is they limit the size of the screen. So they say Android, as it pertains to a small device, a screen size of this, or even the tablet size. The reason why you do that is there sometimes are opportunities in the future that don't exist today. Let's say like Android on smart TV. That smart TV platform might have signed a different deal terms with you, but if you give Android exclusivity to this partner, you've lost the opportunity to do a second contract. So watch out. Look out for QA commitments and bug fix turnarounds. The Pocket God guys would go out and buy different droids and test it and everything. It's really painful. It's your brand that's going to be damaged, not the partners, right? So make sure they're held to a certain level and a certain standard. You also want to ask the partner to tailor it to that platform. You don't want to just take the game and push it into all these other devices. You want to make sure that it's tailored. So if it's a premium game on iPhone, it might actually be freemium. Let's say for Android might be a better way to go. Make sure that they take careful attention to what platform and see if they can tailor it to best fit it. All right, maybe your brand works well. You might be able to leverage it onto an online or social game. If you do this with a partner, you want to make sure they have a large user base. If it, of course, helps with conversion. Also check to see if they have any strength by the territory. The worst thing is to say, yeah, we have global rights, and that's fantastic, except nobody's really playing in Asia, right? So just make sure they really have some strength in those territories. And don't be afraid to ask for proof of monetization with some of the games. Go like, hey, what's the average revenue some of your other game titles have been making? And if they can provide that, then you can assess, all right, that's about probably what we can make. You can make those assumptions. And of course, analytics skills are really critical in social games, as well as make sure to get access to real-time data. I think that helps in case you can say, hey, seems like a lot of people are customizing their islands. Let's add more things here and there, and you can help guide your partner. Console. Some of you guys might get lucky and get an opportunity to go onto console. Of course, this is far more complex than some of these casual games. Make sure that your studio has like a team that can devote a lot of time, and do you want to do that? That might, again, be a distraction. And check to see whether your brand, does it truly fit this platform? Does Fruit Ninja really work on Wii? Like, double check, make sure it is a good fit for what you're trying to do. And finally, if those first two bullets are a yes, then ultimately, does this publisher have the strength of distribution? Is product going to move off the shelf and push through? If not, that's going to be a huge waste of time, right? All right, what about animation, comics, and books? This is a great way for indies to deepen the storyline and actually create more fan loyalty. If you are considering an animation from your game, there's a couple different channels you can look at. Of course, the most complex is film and TV, really hard to sign those rights. But you might have webisodes. That's a great entry. You can do it online or even like some kind of video app. If you do animation, look at what level of control, creative control, do you want to keep? Do you want to be the illustrator? Do you want to be the story writer? Or are you going to outsource that work? And also know what kind of art assets you have. If they're trying to create a book or something, the more art assets you can give to them, you can negotiate better terms because you're doing more of the work for that partner. And in the end, if you're working with a big entertainment studio on an animation, watch out with merchandise rights. They will absolutely want to hold on to them. And one way to protect yourself is to go ahead and launch in consumer products. Number one, if you already have an existing business, they can't go into that. It's harder for them to get exclusive rights. And number two, you can narrow it by TV and film content only and give them exclusive rights as it pertains to that, but keep this original merchandise business going. Okay, a lot of indies are also looking at consumer products. We have Cut the Rope, Doodle Jump, Angry Birds, Pocket God, etc., and getting into figurines, apparel, plushies. If you do consumer products, look at these companies will ask for a ton of different categories on an exclusive basis. You don't want to give the whole suite of merchandise to one company. So try to limit the number of categories you give, again, to hedge your bet. Look at distribution. I had one partner say, hey, yeah, we're going to do global rights or global distribution. And I'm like, great, tell me about your Latin America sales. And they're like, well, we haven't really signed a retailer there. And I'm like, great, when you do, we'll add that to the contract, but let's not start there. So make sure that they actually have some clout. You might want to include carve back rights. And what that means is if you give them, keychains with figurines, that's fantastic, except here you have to launch this category by a particular date, or if you don't hit a minimum unit sales, the rights carve back to you, and that helps protect yourself from someone sitting on it for a couple years. Make sure that they have clout with the retailers, either mass, mid-tier, or specialty, so they can move product. And don't be afraid to ask for product samples. They'll ship it straight to your house. You can look at the texture, the quality, see if that's the right move for you. And finally, I think this is an interesting one, repurposing a game, or call it reskin. We have the famous one right now is Temple Run Brave. I signed a deal, helped sign a deal with Hotel Transylvania with Sony Pictures and Play First, bringing together Hotel Transylvania Dash. These are really lucrative ways to repurpose a game engine with just a little bit of reskin work. So if you go down this path and you're working with an entertainment studio, number one, ask them what are the marketing they'll do on behalf of the specific game. They'll talk about the millions of dollars that they're spending on the movie, but that's a little different than specific dollars spent on acquiring users for the game. And look at the popularity of the brand. Does the brand match what your game's demo? Does it fit? Is there synergy? You kind of want to match that up. Also, know that even if you're a small studio, you might be able to outsource that reskin work. Studios will let you do that, and if that's true, you can also try to negotiate a recoup, and some of them are willing to do that. So that's a great way to outsource that work and gain some of the revenues without taxing your development team. So the bottom line is licensing opportunities can really be explosive for your revenue, but just be careful about the nuances for each platform before signing an agreement. And of course, enjoy the journey as much as the destination, wherever that may be. Thank you. Any questions? Excellent.
Yeah, let's wait for the microphone. Actually, I have
great.
1 or 2 questions. So.
Great.
Yeah, you were talking about carved back rights, which is a great idea, but you put it in a point with consumer rights. And my question is, wouldn't it be a good idea to, when you sign a contract with a publisher, so if you do standard publishing deals, to the kind of carved back rights there as well? So
yeah, actually, so that's a really good point. So I put carved back rights underneath consumer products, but in general, if someone says, hey, we're going to launch on Android, or we're going to launch on console or whatever, I think it's important to define no later than this particular date you need to commercially launch. And again, that makes them hit certain milestones and actually come out with a product. You don't want to sign a deal and then have someone kind of say, we're a little busy right now, and they never really get to it. So whether it's carve back or commercial launch date or these kind of pieces to the contract are really important to include.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And another question is, so your examples were quite popular, really. So really brands like Angry Birds or Pocket God. Although these started out as indie companies and really small teams, you know, the Pocket God guys a little bit. So when does it actually make sense to pursue all these different options you have presented? So how popular or how big has your brand to be, or can it even help to make a brand out of a small brand?
You know, there's a little bit of a halo effect. For every deal that you're signing, it creates a lot of hype around your brand. So if you're starting off and you're not really that big yet, you have to wait a little bit until you're a little bit known. But I know some guys, Hidden Variable, they're down here in North Hollywood in California. They started signing some consumer products like t-shirts and so on and so forth. All of that serves as a marketing play that ties back in, and then when people are in the App Store, maybe they buy the product. So again, carefully choose. I think, again, if you're a little team and you have iPhone, it may be too much work for your little team to also do Android. I'm not saying that's not a good opportunity, but you might want to go ahead and sign the rights and have someone else do the porting and all the testing and all of that stuff. So.
Okay, great. Any other questions? So, okay.
Yeah.
Then thanks, Jean, for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.